Des Moines City Council meeting. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Whoop. Where's the flag? We lost the flag. What's that? You guys steal it from us?
File a report.
Yeah.
Someone stole our flag. That's
All right, well, we'll table that for next time.
And we have the scouts here. We're sorry,
Yeah,
scouts.
sorry, guys. This renovation has taken on a life of its own. All right, Ryan, I guess we need everybody to sign in.
Four members present.
Okay, Ryan, any changes to the agenda?
The only change to the agenda is that staff is recommending the removal of item 9A, legislative updates, as there weren't really any relevant updates to give tonight. So,
Okay, and that assumes, I guess, no one on the council has a question, but.
right.
And also, I guess, I know we have a number of residents here from Sugar Creek. We're going to pull item 4P1 and address that when we have our public hearing on item 6F. So any residents from Sugar Creek, if you'll wait until we get to 6F, we'll have the public hearing on that whole issue and have the staff do a brief presentation. So with those changes, I take a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
All right, please vote.
4 yes.
Item 2 is Citizens Forum, which is the time for anyone in the audience would like to address the City Council on any item that's not part of public hearings, item 6, or new business, item 7. Okay. Seeing no one, we'll move on to Mayor, Council, City Manager reports. We'll start Carol Chambers with our West Des Moines Chamber. Welcome.
Pleasure to be here. Made it kind of a habit to come and visit with you once a year. And so I've provided you each with a packet of information that gives you an example of what I'm going to just very quickly cover for you. We had a great year in 2019. People want to do business with people who are successful. Successful people do, and I can tell you that we are on the right track. We have outpaced the national trends with membership and retention and net new members. About 56% of chambers across the country fail at adding net new members. We added 51 net new members, a total of 141 new members, but our net gain was 51. So we're bucking the trends across the country and doing that, I believe, in a very classy, high quality way. Our focus, or a couple of things. Last year, we also introduced 2 new community events that have added, I think, some excitement to the calendar in West Des Moines. The first one is Eat Week, which is our version of Restaurant Week. We are doing it again this year, same time frame, starts over Drake Relays weekend and runs through that first Sunday in May. So we'll be advertising that soon. We had a great response last year with 19 member restaurants participating. We expect to surpass that this year. We also added the First Responders Breakfast, Appreciation Breakfast last year, and had over 300 attendees come and listen to Eric Maddox, who was the special negotiating agent who discovered where Saddam Hussein was hiding under the tunnels into Crete. This year, we have secured former Lieutenant Jason Redman, who is a retired Navy SEAL, who has an extremely interesting story to tell about how he lost his lieutenant stripes, got them back through top performance, and then was led a team into Afghanistan on a raid and was ambushed and literally lost his face in that battle and how he came back from that. He is an outstanding speaker. We heard him speak. He will rock the room. So we're scheduling that the week of September 11th. It will be on the 9th and again at the Ron Pearson Center. We have many, many events that we hold over the course of a year, but I wanted to share mostly with you tonight what we are doing for workforce development. Any employers in this room, even the city, will, I'm sure, share that finding quality workforce is a challenge everywhere. And we have high hopes to be adding a person to our team this summer to focus predominantly on workforce. And that effort will be manifested by participating in college career fairs. This happens to be the week of spring fairs. And so Gina was at UNI today. We're at Creighton tomorrow and Iowa on Wednesday. Last week we hit Drake and Iowa State. And we have one more college, the University of Nebraska at Omaha later next week. So we're attending those, representing West Des Moines, not as a chamber and not specifically as a city, but this is our backdrop that highlights all the different things that new grads can do in our community, so to speak, a graphic illustration of the quality of life that we offer here, particularly targeting at the Generation Z. And so far the feedback has been absolutely great. We campaigned in Omaha last fall, went after their young professionals with an ad campaign that focused on the fact that wages are higher in Des Moines, and we went right for the throat. And so we'll keep that pace up. You have to be vigilant and pay attention to what's happening in the area, and we're doing that. We started something new called Career Trek Days, and we invite students from the different universities across Iowa, Regent universities, and several independent private colleges to bring specific programs, students within accounting and finance, engineering, different sectors within the college or university. They come to West Des Moines. We give them a brief, fun, highly interactive, techie orientation, and then they spend the rest of the day with 2 or 3 employers learning about their culture, visiting with them about what the process is, what those opportunities might look like post-graduation, and we end with a reception back at the chamber office, inviting all members and investors to come and visit with these students. It's highly successful. Those are, and then of course we have our college intern program, your turn. We have breakfast with the mayor one morning. We have 3 lunch and learns. We do some social things for the students to bring them together, to meet people. It has been highly successful. We're doing it again this coming summer. Again, this is all part of that workforce overview. For retention, we're focused on our Young Professionals Club organization. You'll see the programming in your packet. This outlines the entire year. And then, without question, our differentiator from any other chamber really in the state is our Leadership Academy. And you can all feel very proud about the programming that we provide young professionals and even midline managers, challenging leadership training that really arms them with what they need to move into that leadership pipeline. So we're working diligently, focused. We're not wasting any time. We've got our head down and the rudder in the right direction, and we're focused very heavily into helping our employers have a workforce, high quality workforce to hire, because if they don't, they're not going to be able to expand. And their clients and prospects need those employees as well. So just wanted to give you just a brief update tonight on what we've done and where we're headed for 2020. Are there any questions that I could answer?
Questions for Carol?
Yes, Renee?
Not necessarily a question, but this is a wonderful piece, Carol. This is
Thank you.
absolutely wonderful.
That's in-house too, by the way.
Okay, and it's just wonderful. And I know that, I think everyone in the room knows that eventually you're transitioning, but this might be your very last meeting in front of council.
It is.
Before you retire. So
Yeah.
I think we'd be remiss if we did not truly thank you for
Oh,
a lot
well,
of the
thank you.
innovative ways that you have brought things to the chamber, you've engaged in the community, and I think you have really elevated the brand of the West Des Moines Chamber. So I know I've gone to a lot of your events, breakfasts, lunches, and whatnot. I just was one last week. So I just want to personally thank you for
Thank
everything
you.
you've done
It's a team
for the
effort.
chamber.
It takes, everybody on our team and our collaboration with the city to make that happen. So thank you very much.
Great.
I didn't know this was going to be your last meeting, otherwise I would have prepared a speech. But I want to thank you as well for everything that you've done in your role here at the chamber. And
been so much
I mean,
fun.
the workforce development effort that you guys are focusing on right now is absolutely phenomenal. The programming that you have is phenomenal. The speakers that you're bringing in, I mean, you have just done a phenomenal job in this role. And I'm going to go over in my council report the recommendations from the F&A committee on hotel funding, and your $25,000 is in there for this additional person. So I'm hopeful that the council will approve that and we can continue on our workforce development efforts. So thanks
you.
for everything,
Thank
Carol.
you,
Really
Russ,
appreciate
very
it.
much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, council reports, Matt.
Nothing at this time, Your Honor.
Kevin?
All right, just want to remind everybody that this Saturday, the 22nd, from 10:30 to noon is going to be my quarterly town hall meeting. It's going to be at the Historic City Hall at 137 Fifth Street in the upstairs conference room.
Okay, Russ.
Okay, just a quick report on the Finance Administration Committee. We did provide recommendations. I'm sure you guys have all seen that, but we had about 500, and we have 15 people or organizations, I guess, request about $556,000 worth of funding. We actually recommended $477,000 worth of funding. I won't go through every one of these, but take a look at that, and I believe that's going to be coming to council sometime soon. $25,000 for the workforce development effort is in there. There's also funding I will mention in there that's maybe not something that is typical of what we've done, but the CIS, the Central Iowa Shelters and Services, we do recommend, even though it is not within the city of West Des Moines, $25,000 for them for a 3-year commitment to try to help with shelter and housing of the homeless population. They may not be in the city of West Des Moines. I know we do have some. They're mainly focused in Des Moines, but we thought that that was something that we all should share in and help. I know that we did help with the construction of that facility initially. Other things that we discussed in finance and administration, we are in the process of establishing scoring and a process and timeline for an RFP for our auditing services. Our current auditor is Eide Bailey. They've done a phenomenal job. They've been around doing this for several years now for us, but we just want to make sure that we're keeping people honest. So we're going to go out to RFP, and they are more than welcome to apply, and I hope that they do. And we discussed updating our standard economic development policy from changing the criteria from right now, we got a policy that if you invest a capital investment of $20 million minimum and create or retain 500 jobs, you are eligible for one of our incentive programs. That bar is set so high, we're not getting a lot of people that are meeting that. And so we're looking at lowering that to a minimum capital investment of $500,000 and creating or retaining a minimum of 5 jobs. We had some discussion on that, but I wanted to bring that back to the committee as we contemplate that a little bit more. I don't want the bar to be too low that we're constantly providing more and more economic development incentives with such a low bar. That may be the right amount, but we just wanted to think about that a little bit more and what the impact of that could potentially be. So we also discussed what's on your agenda tonight, the assignment to manage our city funds from Miles Capital to the Prudent Man Advisors, and that's all I have for my report. I will say in the near future I will be bringing up and discussing with each one of you The DART budget is going to be voted on, and we are looking at potentially two scenarios. One of them, I believe, where it's a status quo budget, and the other one where potentially we could have a half a cent increase in the levy rate. That half cent increase is something that we need to take seriously because, you know, looking at some of the ideas that we're trying to implement to do some savings, using Uber and Lyft and taxi service and whatnot, we have to be able to segregate our sources of funding. Right now, we just have one general fund. And to be able to do some of the things that we're doing, we have to set up another account and account for that money separately, or we could potentially endanger our federal funding. And so we need probably half a cent to be able to do that. And so that's what we're considering. I think there are some other items they'd like to do for a full cent, but I'm not sure that there is the support there of the commission. So be talking to each and every one of you in the future about that.
Greg?
I think Russ hit a lot of the stuff from F&A, so nothing to report, Your Honor.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to say that yesterday, and I don't see Daryl from the library, but as a liaison to the West Des Moines Library, it was a phenomenal event yesterday, and if you weren't there, you really missed it. It was about Buxton, Iowa, which is a coal mining town that was flourishing in the 1900s with whites and blacks all working together in light of the times. And there was a lady that came that is an author. It was standing room only on both sides of the community room. So kudos to the Des Moines Library and the West Des Moines Historical Society for bringing her here and having her speak. It was just absolutely phenomenal. So I was really proud to see that kind of diversity of education offered at our library and people attending. So I want to give kudos to that. I attended my first meeting of the University Avenue Corridor Redevelopment Plan Advisory Group, lots of words there, but we are beginning to look at that particular area for development, had our first meeting, and looking forward to serving West Des Moines in that capacity. The mayor has asked me to serve on that, and I'm happy to do so. Also attended the Human Rights Commission. I'm a liaison to the West Des Moines Human Rights Commission. And we have a fiery group of people as commissioners that really want to elevate what we do and not meet just to be meeting, but offering value to the city and as it relates to diversity and inclusion and equity. So stay tuned. They approved their strategic plan. They are really geared up to work. I think their first entree was the Martin Luther King activity that occurred in January. That is just a teaser of what yet is to come. And they really want to work with Laura and the city and Jane on a number of fronts as it relates to human rights and diversity and inclusion. So very passionate group of folks that have been appointed mayor to that commission that truly, truly, truly is living the mission of what they're going to be doing. And again, I said I attended the West Des Moines Chamber. They had a wonderful luncheon last week where 6 panelists spoke that represent companies in West Des Moines. It was 42 sales tips in 42 minutes. And we got 42 sales tips in 43 minutes, I think. And it was wonderful. And so another offering by the chamber that's helping add value to its members. So that concludes my report, Your Honor. Thank you.
I do just want to mention one thing I meant to mention in the report for hotel motel funding. We also did recommend $7,500 for next year's Martin Luther King Jr. celebration. I know they had a great celebration this year. We hope that that funding will help them to make it even bigger and better.
Yeah, well, they've got some plans to do so. So thank you. I'll be in support of that.
Tom?
No report, Your Honor.
Item 4, consent agenda. When we approved the agenda, we pulled 4P1. But are there any other consent agenda items that any council member wants to pull? Otherwise, I'll take a motion for the
I
rest.
got to sign in first. We got to redo.
Yep.
Sorry, guys.
Greg and Renee, we need you to re-sign in, please.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry.
5 members present.
I would move that we approve the remainder of the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay.
All right, please vote.
Five yes.
Okay, item 5, one item under old business, 5A, amendment to City Code Title 4, Health and Safety Regulations, Chapter 4, nuisances. Modify the procedures and requirements for nuisances, city initiated. This is an ordinance for the second, third reading, final adoption. There are no changes from the first reading. There are no outstanding issues.
Move consideration of the second reading.
Second.
Questions or comments? All right, please vote.
Five yes, an ordinance amending the city code of the city of West Des Moines, Iowa, 2019 by amending Title 4 Health and Safety Regulations, Chapter 4 nuisances.
Move approval of the second reading.
Second.
All right, please vote.
Five yes.
Move waiver of the third reading and adoption in final form.
Second.
All right, please vote.
Five yes.
All right, item 6, public hearings. There's a number of them tonight. Item 6A, the council's being asked to continue that item to the March 2nd council meeting.
Move continuation.
Second.
All right, please vote.
Five yes.
6B, council's also being asked to continue this item to the March 2nd meeting.
Move continuation.
Second.
All right, please vote.
Five yes.
Item 6C, this is the time and place for a public hearing to consider the conveyance of excess property to the city of Waukee. 3 parcels located along the north side of I-80 along the Grand Prairie Parkway and I-80 interchange initiated by the city of West Des Moines. Ryan, would you please read the date the notice was published?
February 12th, 2020 in the Des Moines Register.
Have you received any written comments?
None, Your Honor.
All right, now would be the time for anyone in the audience that would like to address the council on item 6C. All right, seeing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed. And again, when that interchange was built, the city of West Des Moines was the agent to go ahead and acquire property. And so this is property that was originally in the city of Waukee's corporate limits anyway. And we're just fulfilling the agreement that we had with Waukee to convey that back to them since we were the acquiring agency under the agreement. So there's no real outstanding issues with this item either. So we need a resolution to approve the conveyance.
Move approval.
Second.
Any other questions?
Can we convey it back to them for double the price?
Yeah, they actually paid, I think, Dick, they paid originally when we acquired it, yeah.
All
So
right,
no, we can't
fine.
mark it up.
All right.
What about handling fees or carrying costs?
All right.
Be nice.
You're a good neighbor.
That's right.
Five yes.
Item 6D, this is the time and place for a public hearing to consider a conveyance of excess property to Herd Black LLC and Herd West Glen LLC, 2 parcels located along the north property line of 8670 and 8550 Mill Civic Parkway, initiated by the city of West Des Moines. Ryan, would you please read the date the notice was published?
February 12th, 2020 in the Des Moines Register.
Have you received any written comments?
None, Your Honor.
And now be the time for anyone in the audience who would like to address the city council on item 6D. Seeing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed. And again, this was an understanding we had with the Hurd family when the city realigned the intersection of South 88th Street and Mill Civic Parkway for that project.
Move approval of the resolution to
Second.
convey the property.
Any other questions or comments? All right, please vote.
Five yes.
6E, this is the time and place for a public hearing to consider conveyance of property to Hurd Real Estate Services, 1 parcel located approximately 200 feet east of Veterans Parkway and 275 feet west of Southeast Willow Creek Drive on vacated Army Post Drive right-of-way, initiated by the city of West Des Moines. Ryan, would you please read the date the notice was published?
February 12th, 2020 in the Des Moines Register.
Have you received any written comments?
None, Your Honor.
Right now would be the time for anyone in the audience who would like to address the city council on item 6E. All right, seeing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Again, this is approval of conveyance of property that has no value to the city.
Move approval.
Second.
Please vote.
Five yes.
All right, items 6F, which I mentioned, I believe we have some residents from Sugar Creek here as well. So we're going to take 4P1 and 6F together. And so we'll walk through this and then we'll have the staff do a presentation. Then we'll open up the public hearing to residents who want to share with the council. So this is a time and place for a public hearing and consider the conveyance of property interest to the Des Moines Metropolitan Wastewater Reclamation Authority Sugar Creek Bank Stabilization Project initiated by the city of West Des Moines. Ryan, would you please read the date the notice was published?
February 12th, 2020, in the Des Moines Register.
Have you received any written comments?
None, Your Honor.
All right, and also the item for 4P1 is a resolution to approve a 28E intergovernmental agreement with the Des Moines Metropolitan Wastewater Reclamation Authority for Sugar Creek Bank Stabilization Phase 1. So before I open it up for public comment, Brian, why don't you give everyone an overview of what this project is and why the city believes it needs to be done.
Sure thing. I don't know if I'm going to get the photos and pictures up here that we had. This computer is kind of playing games with us right now. So what I do want to let you know is the Wastewater Reclamation Authority is the one in charge of this project. We're helping them out with some of the public outreach and with acquiring some right-of-way. And this project's actually been in the works for a little over 3 years. It was actually before Kings Landing was constructed. We really wanted to get this done before Kings Landing was constructed so we could just get in and get out and move on. And we weren't able to do that.
I think I can, sorry to interrupt, I think I can get the pictures up on my computer if the AV folks would switch off the camera so that I can get the display on my computer.
That's great.
If, right now we're just seeing the camera feed.
I'll keep talking. So
Before you go, is this a project that we identified years ago that needed to be done, had to stabilize the bank to prevent flooding and erosion and all that kind of stuff? And then the WRA, was this in conjunction with WRA? Did they identify this project needed to be done? Who?
the WRA identified it to be done because of
Okay.
the sanitary sewer that's running through there that they own.
Okay,
It's partially for them is to protect that public infrastructure, but as part of the funding that they use to pay for it, the state revolving fund, that's a water quality initiative. And so one of the requirements of the water quality initiative is to do things, not just rip wrap the banks from bottom to top and just make it look like, a conduit in downtown LA. They want it to look very natural. So what we're doing is we're keying in the bottom, we're laying back the slopes, we're keying in the bottom with large rock or riprap, and then native plantings along the banks of the creek. So in laying back the slopes, there'll be tree removal involved, a significant amount of tree removal. So what we've done to try to counteract that is put about, I believe the numbers, and Sally will have to verify this, but about 80 trees back in there, and they're trees that are, good hardy trees that some of the trees that we're removing are thorny locust, mulberries. And from what I understand, when we go to put a trail through there, the Parks Department removes the thorny locust trees regardless because of the, it's a safety hazard. So one of the things that I want to make sure that we understand is that these stream banks are they're basically cut banks. They're straight up and down. And one of the photos we have that was actually in the letter that was sent out to the folks is there's about a 6 foot tall person standing at the bottom of it, and you could probably stack 2.5 of them up to get to the top of the bank, and it is straight down. So
I might also add, though, as far as Michael's Landing Homeowners Association identified this as a problem 2 years ago. They had Bishop Engineering actually look at it, and they were going to have a cost of about $50,000 to
Right.
just repair their area. So this is kind of part and parcel with that smaller issue that they had that they found to be pretty aggravating as well.
and you and I met with them at least 2 times, if not 3, on this issue.
Right.
Are you getting these pictures up, Ryan?
We're working on it. Sorry.
That's okay. So let's see, I just want to make sure I got everything in there. So yeah, the idea of it, because of those SRF funds and keeping everything, there's a stormwater quality component there. We have to keep everything looking as natural as possible. So that's really all I had for presentation. The photos were just, overviews of the project and if you had any questions specifically about any areas.
Can I ask, well,
Yeah,
we'll do
yeah,
public
let's
hearing.
wait.
And then
I don't know, Tom, is there anyone else? I know you mentioned maybe Sally Wanda or Dick.
Well,
anybody else?
I might tell you too as well, this is all going to be repaired, this is going to be an all-natural state when they're done with it. As Brian was saying, they're going to put in several trees. They have to be of indigenous nature. It's all going to be plantings that they're going to, after they lay back the slopes, it's going to be a conservation easement for 20 years. The WRA has a right. They're going to make the plantings within the first year and then take care of them for 20 years. So it's going to be a natural state. And so you, instead of getting this steep 18 to 20-foot drop-offs, it's going to be laid back, and it'll be natural grasses and trees of that sort. So it's going to be very much a natural preserved area. There's not going to be anything that's other than nature out there, so.
Well, and you might, I guess I'm anticipating, I know residents always have heartburn when we start taking trees out. So to the extent you can articulate what trees were selected, how they were selected, imagine we're trying to save all the really high quality ones that we need. So to the extent, I know Sally, you or Brian or Dick can talk about what were the efforts to identify what needs to be removed. We're not removing any more than we absolutely have to make the project work. Is that right?
And how many trees are we taking down and how many do we plan on putting back? Are we taking down 5 and putting back 5? Are we?
Sally
How is that
Ortiz,
working?
Director of Parks and Recreation. I do not know the exact number of trees that are being
Okay.
taken out. However, anything that would be within the grading limits of the project, which is really tied into, getting that more sustainable slope back from the actual creek channel, those trees are going to have to come out. I will say that, many of them are right along that creek bank. Without a whole lot of movement of that bank, those trees are going to end up down into the creek channel.
There's a type of tree,
Got 'em up now.
they're basically thorny locusts. And if you notice, there's about a 2-inch thorn on each of those trees. So in talking to the Parks Department, they planned at some point to put a bike trail through there. And they thought at that time there was going to be necessary to take those trees out because of the danger and the safety hazards it poses. And you'll also see on some of these pictures where some of these trees are almost at the edge of the creek bank, and they're going to be falling in. So, but I think there's a few more if you scroll through. The first, there you
go.
see,
Yeah. Wow.
Well, and I don't know, a lot of cities have arborists, and we have our own arborist. I'm assuming to the extent that's relevant that we had him working on this as well.
Yes.
yeah, he
Yes,
walked through this whole thing.
John Olds did walk the entire corridor. He did not identify, what he was looking for are those, oak trees, those hardwoods that, we definitely would not want to be disturbing unless we absolutely had to. He did not identify any of those types of trees. It was, for the most part, the thorny honey locusts and mulberries.
So if there's a thorny locust or mulberry, they're coming down.
If they're within
It's gonna have to be
that
more than
grading
just those
limits.
because they can't pinpoint.
Right.
Oh,
To lay those banks back, it's.
but I'm
not-
saying those for sure are coming down.
Yeah,
Only if they're in the way though, right?
Right.
There's
There
gonna
may
some of
be
them stay.
There may be some, maybe some locusts without the thorns. There may be some mulberries that are not within those grading limits. And I saw in the plans that there are some trees still remaining.
Now, remind us, I understand the grading limits, so they're going to have to go in and take out whatever's in the grading limits, but what goes back in the grading limit areas? And I know it's more sustainable. I've worked on projects like this in other cities that we've developed in, and quite frankly, it's sophisticated. Now, what some people say is, well, it's going to take 5, 10, 15 years for these to get some of the size back, but when you look at it, you don't have to keep going back in there all the time because of the way it gets designed.
I'm sorry, it's too bad that we don't have the pictures of the plantings at the end of the project because they're all going to be hardwoods. And there's quite a few trees that are going to be planted all through there.
Yeah,
and, you know,
native species,
Okay.
there will be, I know that there were 2 different types of oaks, some maple, sycamore,
and birch.
some birch. So, all native species that will be
And
going.
Brian, you're saying one of the big initiatives is the WRA's got a sanitary sewer running through here, and they need to do this so that the sewer line doesn't get exposed and break and other things that can happen to it?
That's correct.
Okay.
Do we have a sense of how far back from the creek edge
That's what that one picture shows.
you're going to be pulling? I mean, I understand trees right there on the edge. It's going to interfere with your ability to do it, but if you're 50 feet away, is that still a tree that's going to get pulled out or?
Well, these cross sections here show a pretty good indication of like what, and the dotted lines on this that's the existing ground. And then the heavy lines are where we have to lay it back. So that kind of shows you, in some cases, we do have to go back a significant number of feet, and like each square left and right is 25 feet. So there's some places where we go back pretty significantly. And that's usually on the inside of those meanders in the stream.
Whose responsibility was it to make sure that the homeowners that were buying lots there and building homes there knew that this was going to go on at some point in time? Is that in their abstract? Was it something that WRA was supposed to do? Who had the responsibility of that notification?
Well,
was it the developer? Who?
When this project was in its infancy, it was very interesting to Vista Real Estate, who was a developer of Kings Landing. They really wanted the project to happen before they developed, but it didn't. And after we didn't get it done before they developed, they kind of stepped away from the project, and essentially that's why they just weren't aware of what the project was doing or what the status of the project was moving forward. And
So was it their responsibility to convey that to the people buying the lots, that, hey, someday this project is going to happen, or?
Not necessarily. It's probably if they asked, they had an obligation to tell them, but I don't know that there was an obligation for them to say what exactly was going to happen there.
Well, Dick, does any of this project get into private property?
No.
no,
So, I mean, highlight that for us, because if this all if we're not getting into private property, now I know they've got a view from it, but we're not directly impacting any of the property that any resident owns, correct?
that's correct. Like if you go to scroll down to the next page or up.
That was it. No, keep to your next page.
To the next page. The top one's the overview.
There you go.
They're going to access this off of Boonville Road, so they'll come straight off Boonville Road and go back for access. So once they get it all established, then they'll just have maintenance for over a period of 20 years, and they'll come and go.
So if you look at the lots 115 through 119 in this particular location, the thread of the creek is actually very close to these properties as it stands today. And that meander is actually in a location where if we had a large storm, it would continue to push to the west, which would potentially put these private property owners at risk. What this is going to do is it's going to hold that in place, and all these little black lines that are perpendicular to the thread of the creek are called bendway weirs, and they basically push the water away from that and prevent it from eroding anymore. It's a more natural way of keeping the erosion down.
Yeah.
So that's just one example of how this is protecting our citizens from the potential erosion.
All right, why don't we see about any public comments from our residents, and then we can figure out if we've got some additional questions. So now would be the time for any of our residents that want to come forward and share your comments with the city council on this item.
Good evening, I'm Jake Ketzner, 1214 South Wildfire Avenue. I'm lot 119 on that diagram that was just brought forward. I want to thank the city staff, especially the Parks Director. He was great. He came out to our house, David Sadler. He came out to my neighbor's house and met with us. And I know that the city staff has had numerous meetings with other neighbors that are here and other neighbors in the neighborhood. I'm a former Clive resident, got smart, moved to West Des Moines.
We appreciate that.
Glad you came.
We're gonna send
We
that
bought
clip
this
to
lot
Mayor Circina.
3 years ago. And I just want to share our disappointment though, because we bought this lot, and I know our neighbors did, because it's a beautiful view of these trees, of the creek. You know, this is going to be the house we live in for a long time. So probably when I move into the retirement home a couple blocks away, these trees will be all, you know, beautiful 30 years from now. So the disappointment, as the nice gentleman here stated, was that this was brought forward 3 years ago, or at least, and that was never relayed, at least to me, and I can speak for my neighbors that are here this evening and other neighbors, that was never relayed to us through the company that developed the property. And so these lots were sold at a premium. They were marketed with material that said, you know, views of trees. The color diagram of the lots had beautiful trees. I do know that the marketing material was updated at a certain point because they were going to put the bike trail in. So they put in that diagram in the marketing material. But we learned about this project in December when the letter came out, and we're like, what? What's this? And so I just want to make it very clear, everything that's in the shaded area is gone. So, I mean, I'm 119, so there's trees all right there. And as the nice folks stated, agreed, basically all of the trees are on the bank line. Concede that 100%. So, as I stated, there no issue on my end from the city. Very thankful to the council for doing their due diligence on it. Anything we can do to save trees is wonderful. The trees that we replant would love to have, you know, as big as they can be. It's more just the disappointment of paying a premium for these wooded lots for them all to be torn down 2 years into buying it. So just want to share that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jake.
Anyone else want to address the council? I'll declare the public hearing closed. Other council member have other questions for the staff? And I know we have areas around the city where we get concerns where people start losing trees, decks, and they're asking us, I mean, so this is a huge issue to try to get out in front of. I understand some of the residents' concerns. You know, it's nice that we're not having to get on anybody's private property, because that always even further complicates it. But, you know, I think we wish, as a city, we could have got out in front of a lot of other areas in the city where we're having to come back and try to figure out how to manage it, and it's really difficult because you just don't have the capacity in the room, and you end up having to do things that aren't aesthetically pleasing, where here it seems like you got a little bit better opportunity for that, especially if it's going into a conservation easement.
I think the project, after I understand their feeling about that, I think after it's all done, it's really going to be an aesthetically pleasing project. And the thing we have to remember, the $2 million available here, if we don't use it now, there's no guarantee we'll get it back. I mean, this is really a good deal for the city and the residents long-term. And I think even though the WRA is saying part of it is to keep their sanitary sewer intact and not exposed, but the big part of it is water quality, as Brian said. So I think this will be an example of how we're going to have to probably approach other parts of the city, but the good part here is there's money that's using WRA funding or interest. It gets revolving loan fund.
Remind me, will that $2 million pay for the whole project?
Yeah, it's it's 1.9 million is what it was bid for. It's actually, it's already been bid. It's going to get awarded tomorrow at the
Remind us who designed the project?
Snyder and Associates.
Okay. And we had plenty of input from our staff standpoint as they were going through and designing it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Have any sense as to the duration, how long this project before it's maybe returned back, you don't have people in the backyard?
We will, There is going to be a pre-construction conference on the 28th of February. We anticipate them going out to start work on it as soon as March. And then we anticipate it being complete yet this fall. There'll be seeding and things that'll have to happen. And we'll need to do that during seeding windows. There are trees that could be potentially bad habitat that we have to cut down before March 31st. So that is something that'll happen immediately.
So at one construction season, but Dick mentioned that access won't be through any private property.
Correct. It'll be off of Boonville and Stagecoach.
Okay.
Where are we getting the funds to do the replantings? Is that coming from another
All from
budget, or is that
SRF.
all from this 1.9?
All from 1.9 from SRF.
Okay, and you said you already have the project bid, and it's going to be 1.9. It's not like they're, potentially going to bid this thing out, and it's going to come in at 1.8, and we could use additional funding for more trees or something like that.
It's all bid out, and it's,
Okay.
yeah, it's
So the
ready to
WRA
construct.
bid it, they bid the project.
Yes.
Okay.
Other questions?
But it just sounds like, so this funding just became available, is that kind of, and that's why this is happening, is that what's going on?
Well, it's been available for a while. I think they've been working on the project, haven't they, Brian?
Okay.
It's been anticipated they were going to need to do this for a long time. And I might say, I think it's probably fair to say, if they don't do it, it's going to need to be done in the next 5 to 10 years just to maintain the banks out there because it's so
Right.
bad. And
Yeah, I think there's no question, this has to be done for health and safety reasons alone, but it is disappointing that these trees are coming down, and, residents did buy the lots and for trees in the backyard that are no longer going to be there, but I don't know, using the WRA, there's going to be no funds left to put additional trees in. We've got, I would assume we've got a number of trees that we know how many are going and what the tree type is going to be and what lots they're going to be on, and has that been shared with the residents as to where the trees are going back, or?
I don't know if,
Fortunately, we have a planting plan.
we do have a planting plan.
Hope to be on the screen, but there's numerous trees going in.
Yeah.
As Sally said, they're nice hardwoods and good quality trees. And then there's other plantings
They're
too.
like this big in caliper, right?
Well,
I mean,
it's about 6 feet tall is what Dave told me, Dave
Okay.
Sadler told me, but, it is they're trying to establish a vegetation out there to prohibit, or to, do
Yeah.
away with the erosion, so.
Permit,
Yep.
yeah. I mean, usually we're cutting down trees on private property, which is really troublesome.
That's,
Yeah,
yeah.
very much so.
So,
Could we add more trees in the future? Or is the tree plan pretty locked into place?
It's city-owned property, so I suppose I'm not a arborist or a landscape architect, so I'm going to defer to Sally.
Sally, is this the future greenway that's part of the 26-mile loop?
It is,
So,
yes,
all right.
it is.
As long as the landscaping is indigenous to the area geographically, we can add whatever, as long as we don't obstruct the stream bank and we can add more than what's actually out there.
Well, I'd like to consider that in the future, as maybe
too.
we're doing this trail to put
Definitely.
some more trees, more dense
Oh, yeah.
trees,
And
There
every year we-
probably would be some space for a few more.
Okay.
well, and every year, don't we have free trees, or trees are really cheap?
Mm-hmm.
If residents along here wanted to come and get free trees to plant in the back of their yard, they could do that as
The
well?
Shade Crusade.
So it's called our Shade Crusade, and it will be up on our website here any day. So if people would like a tree for your yard,
Okay.
$30.
Oh, so it's not.
Shade, does the Shade,
Plugged by Sally Ortiz, ladies and gentlemen.
does the Shade Crusade deliver these trees, or they got to come get them?
No, you have to
come
come
get
to
it.
City
Oh, all
Hall
right,
to
all
pick
right.
them up. but-
It's a split cost still.
Russ Trimble has a pickup though. so
Hey,
we'll
I
haul
do.
it for you.
I'll be there.
So probably, I guess,
Give me a call.
Your ward.
the right order of this.
Your
would,
ward.
Probably the right order would be for a motion to approve 4P1 first,
Okay,
and then we would go to 6F.
Move approval.
second.
All right, please vote on 4P1.
5 yes.
Then we have 6F, which is a resolution to approve the conveyance.
Move approval.
Second.
All right, please vote.
5 yes.
All right, item 6G, we have a number of bond issuance items here that we're going to go through. I'll just close the public hearing, and then we'll have one resolution to award all of them when we get to the last one. So the first item is 6G. This is the time and place for a public hearing to consider the issuance of not to exceed $7,400,000 essential corporate purpose general obligation bonds initiated by the City of West Des Moines. Ryan, would you please read the date the notice was published?
February
And we received any written comments? None, Your Honor. All right, now would be the time for anyone in the audience who would like to address the City Council on item 6G. Okay, seeing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed. And again, all these issuance are going to be used to fund construction of several CIP projects in prior and current fiscal year budgets. And there's a list of those projects that are in the material as well.
Two of the projects that are on there I'm excited about. I'm excited about all of them, but two of the Hawk signals, one at 39th and EP True, and one at 41st and Mills Civic Parkway. Those are Hawk beacons or signals that residents have been asking us about based on the concern of safety of kids, and those are in there, so.
Okay. All right, so we've closed the public hearing on 6G. 6H, this is the time and place for a public hearing to consider the issuance of not to exceed $700,000 general corporate purpose general obligation bonds, GCP 1, initiated by the City of West Des Moines. Ryan, would you please read the date the notice was published?
February 7th, 2020 in the Des Moines
Have
Register.
received any written comments?
None, Your Honor.
Okay, now would be the time for anyone in the audience who would like to address the City Council on item 6H. Okay. Seeing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed on item 6H. 6I, this is the time and place for a public hearing to consider issuance of not to exceed $700,000 general corporate purpose general obligation bonds, GCP 2, initiated by the City of West Des Moines. Ryan, would you please read the date the notice was published?
February 7th, 2020 in the Des Moines Register.
And have we received any written comments?
None, Your Honor.
All right, now would be the time for anyone in the audience that would like to address the City Council on item 6I. All right, seeing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed on item 6I. 6J, this is the time and place for a public hearing to consider issuance of not to exceed $700,000 general corporate purpose general obligation bonds, GCP 3, initiated by the City of West Des Moines. Ryan, would you please read the date the notice was published?
February 7th, 2020 in the Des Moines Register.
Received any written comments?
None, Your Honor.
Right now be the time for anyone in the audience that would like to address the City Council on item 6J. All right, seeing no one, I will declare the public hearing closed on item 6J. Item 6K, this is the time and place for a public hearing to consider issuance of not to exceed $700,000 general corporate purpose general obligation bonds, GCP 4, initiated by the City of West Des Moines. Ryan, would you please read the date the notice was published?
February 7th, 2020 in the Des Moines Register.
We received any written comments?
None, Your Honor.
Right now would be the time for anyone in the audience that would like to address the City Council on item 6K. Seeing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed on item 6K. 6L, this is the time and place for a public hearing to consider issuance of not to exceed $695,000 general corporate purpose general obligation bonds, GCP 5, initiated by the City of West Des Moines. Ryan, would you please read the date the notice was published?
February 7th, 2020 in the Des Moines Register.
And received any written comments?
None, Your Honor.
And now would be the time for anyone in the audience that would like to address the City Council on item 6L. Okay, seeing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed. We need a resolution to institute proceedings to take additional action and authorize the issuance and levy of a tax for items 6G through 6L.
Move approval.
Second.
Any other questions or comments? All right, please vote.
5 yes.
6M, this is the time and place for a public hearing to consider Grand Avenue Improvements Phase 2, South Jordan Creek Parkway to South 88th Street, initiated by the City of West Des Moines. Ryan, would you please read the date the notice was published?
February 7th, 2020 in the Des Moines Register.
Have you received any written comments?
None, Your Honor.
Right now be the time for anyone in the audience who'd like to address the City Council on item 6M. Okay, seeing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed. We have two resolutions and a motion which we can take together.
Move approval.
Any-
Yeah, I'm going to abstain from this for conflict.
Okay. All right, please vote on 6M, and we'll note Matt's abstention.
This project's going to be great to connect. It's been a long time coming, and I'm really excited for that connection to be made. So very supportive.
4 yes, 1 abstention due to potential conflict of interest.
6N, this is the time and place for a public hearing to consider city entrance enhancements, Phase 1B, initiated by the city of West Des Moines. Ryan, would you please read the date notice was published?
February 7th, 2020 in the Des Moines Register.
Have you received any written comments?
None, Your Honor.
All right, now would be the time for anyone in the audience would like to address the city council on item 6N. All right, seeing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed. This is an item that we rejected bids and rebid it in a better environment, which obviously we have here. So we can take, we have both resolutions and a motion which we can take together.
Move approval.
Second.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, please vote.
Five yes.
6-0, this is the time and place for a public hearing to consider Grand Avenue reconstruction east of I-35, initiated by the city of West Des Moines. Ryan, would you please read the date the notice was published?
February 7th, 2020 in the Des Moines Register.
Received any written comments?
None, Your Honor.
Okay, now be the time for anyone in the audience that'd like to address the city council on item 6-0. Okay, seeing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Again, we have two resolutions and a motion. This is a tight project with 28 calendar days to complete it, but the Iowa DOT changed the design of the Grand Avenue interchange after the city had already made improvements to Grand east of the interchange. So we got to go back and pick up a couple of segments that were impacted by the redesign of the Iowa DOT.
Move approval.
Second.
All right, please vote.
Do we know, I mean, if they have only 28 days and it has to be done by September 15th, I mean, are they going to be starting August 15th, or do we have any idea of when, oh, Brian, there you are, sitting up in front. You must have anticipated this question.
Brian Hennessy, City Engineer. The 28 days is just for the closure of Grand Avenue.
Okay, just for the closure of Grand.
Right.
So that takes care of my second question. How is Grand going to be closed and how long? 28
28
days.
days.
All right.
Item 7, new business. 1, item 7A, amendment to City Code Title 7, Public Ways and Property, Chapter 9, Water Supply Protection, modify the procedures and requirements for shallow and deep wells. West Des Moines Water Works, this is an ordinance for the first reading. There are no outstanding issues. And Christina's here. if
Move
anybody has
consideration
questions.
first reading.
Is there a second?
Second.
And I have to give kudos to who drafted this. This is short and sweet. Most of the ordinances are not, so. All right, please vote on the first reading.
Can I ask a question? Okay. So the question that I have is basically we're changing the definition, or striking the, I guess, changing the definition and then striking out what's allowed near this. I mean, I can read what this is doing, I just don't know why we're doing it.
Sure. So about 2 years ago,
I
we
need your
drilled a
name,
new.
Christina.
Oh,
We
sorry,
know you.
Christina Murphy,
Yep.
General Manager, West Des Moines Waterworks. 2 years ago, we drilled a new deep well, and as we finalized the SRF paperwork, the DNR indicated that our ordinance was out of date
Okay.
and not in compliance with the state code. So instead of trying to clean that up, we just by reference adopt the state code.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
State did something well.
Hey, we're good.
Okay. All right, please vote on 7A.
5 yes, an ordinance amending the city code of the city of West Des Moines, Iowa, 2019 by amending Title 7, Public Ways and Property, Chapter 9, Water Supply Protection.
Move approval of the first reading.
Second. All right, please vote.
Have to be weird to move those things.
5 yes.
All right, item 8, we don't have any items to receive, file, and/or refer. Item 9, other matters. Does any council member have any other matters that they want to raise tonight? Okay, if not, we will adjourn the council meeting into an executive session on the potential for acquisition or disposition of real estate. Ryan, are we in the teamwork room?
Yep, you can go in the teamwork.
Okay.
That clock is wrong.
Hey,
Yep.